Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our live video broadcast. We're doing a survey right now. If you want to take part, if you haven't already, it is at bit.ly. Why didn't it show up? Did I already make the thing yesterday? I want to mention this. Where is it? bit.ly/2016 DTNS. That'll just redirect you to the survey. And so far, one of the things I'm noticing is people are saying they really enjoy the pre and post show. It's always been true, but so there you go. We aim to please.
Yes.
We take aim with our please.
Well, as
your please gun. Your please gun.
I know. Well, I started to do that, and then I'm like, oh, some people don't like that. So our please, like pea shooter, please shooter.
Your please nerf.
Our please catapults. Our please trebuchets.
Yeah, there you go. Silverblade says he wants the show to be 2 hours.
Yeah. Interesting. Most people don't. Most people are saying, I like it exactly the way it is, or maybe even a tiny bit shorter. And I think that's the people who listen to the edited version, right? The audio podcast. They want to keep it closer to 30 rather than over 40.
It's a good
run. We're still getting responses in, but that seems to be the early trend.
You know, I have to plug the headline show because I listened to it this morning and it was awesome.
Oh, thanks.
So, yeah.
Well, that is officially launching on July 5th.
Okay.
So we'll start making a big deal out of it then. But yeah, you can subscribe to it. The link to subscribe is in the blog post for the headline show at dailytechnewsshow.com. All right. Do you know how to illustrate Brexit, Len, I assume?
You know, I have an interesting image sort of up, and we'll see how it goes.
All right. Well, here we go. Oh, crap. Here we go. Let me do it this time with the volume up.
Oh, it's a Friday, isn't it?
Yeah.
0.02% of the Daily Tech News Show were brought to you by me. If you would like to decrease my already meager equity, go to dailytechnewsshow.com/support.
This is the Daily Tech News for Friday, June 24th, 2016. I'm Tom Merritt. Joining me today, Darren Kitchen. It feels like only yesterday I was in the Hack 5 warehouse, and here we meet again.
Yes, and the Hack 5 warehouse will follow you. It will. That's what it does.
The spirit of the Hack 5 warehouse lives within me. Laughing there in the background with the glow of an NBA championship city is Len Peralta from Cleveland, or the Cleveland area.
CLE, of course. Yes, we took care of all the gloating and bragging before in the pre-show.
Did we?
Sure? I could go on, of course.
Is that a promise?
I could go on for a long time, but for the sake of your West Coast fans of Golden State, I will not do that. But
all right. That is very kind of you. Len will be illustrating the show, which you can always find online at lenperaltastore.com or by watching the video version of the show. We're going to talk a bit about the Brexit. I don't think it's much of a tech story, certainly not yet, but we'll talk about why it's not yet, but how it could impact your use of technology. Let's start off with the top stories. Apple announced it's discontinuing its Thunderbolt display. Apple will sell out current stock through their stores. Company pointed users to third-party monitors going forward, as no replacement model has yet been announced. Ars Technica previously reported on rumors that Apple would release 5K monitors driven by an external GPU later this year. BuzzFeed managing editor John Pashofsky got everybody all talking by tweeting this morning that his sources tell him a next-gen display with an integrated GPU is in fact still coming. So Darren, there's two sides of this story, or two interpretations. One is this is the last Apple monitor. Other than getting an iMac, you're not going to be able to get a monitor from Apple. And other people saying, no, we're going to get a new one in the fall, and it's going to have this GPU thing in it.
Yes, and they'll call it the Cinema Display or something.
That's what they called the old one.
Adequate. I know, right? It used to be the hotness. I feel like you're right. There's two ways this can go. One is Apple is on death watch. Oh my God, iPhone sales dropped. They're cutting monitors. Next thing you know, like the geniuses aren't gonna get genius schooling or something. I'm not, they can't afford tuition, right?
It'll be the average intelligence bar.
Exactly. Or the alternative is like, oh, just you wait. that rumor about the Apple TV is coming in 8K with crazy GPUs.
Oh,
And
I didn't think
VR.
about that
Why
that
not?
end. Let's go past Pashovsky and his sources and his reliable reporting right over crazy town to say, yeah, okay, so they're not going to have a television service. No reason they can't have a television.
Right? Have you ever met a rumor? Their area code is from Crazy Town. That's where they grow up
That's
before
where
they
they
move
live.
west.
Yeah. Oculus updated its hardware-specific runtime Friday and removed the DRM code that prevented games from working with other headsets like the HTC Vive. The change was not mentioned in its update notes. It was discovered and then made public by the developer of Revive. Revive, if you remember, if you followed the show, that's the piece of software that allowed you to take your Oculus games and play them on the HTC Vive. It did not circumvent game DRM until Oculus started doing these headset checks. And then the developer said, I don't really want to do this, but it's the only way to make Revive work. So he re-engineered Revive to circumvent DRM. Well, on his GitHub page, or her GitHub page, the Revive developer said, hey, I noticed they're not checking the hardware anymore, so Revive now no longer disables game DRM to provide compatibility. Oculus confirmed to Ars Technica that it, quote, will not use hardware checks as part of DRM on the PC in the future.
Right. So this is really like Facebook / Oculus just growing pains as a newcomer to the gamer world, learning, the lesson that Microsoft and Sony and the likes have learned, which is do not underestimate the angry gamer mob.
And I don't know what the lesson is here, but Palmer Luckey very clearly was on the side of the Revives of the world and saying things like, yeah, there's no reason for us to lock this sort of thing down. And then suddenly they locked it down and they said, well, we have to do this for X, Y, and Z reasons. And nobody bought any of those reasons. And now it turns out, well, no, actually none of those reasons do apply. So I am curious what the inside story is. These kinds of things often happen when someone in a marketing position or in maybe a game development position has some leverage and says, no, I really need this to happen. And the engineers are like, well, okay, I guess we have to. And then it takes public outcry. Sometimes, and I'm not saying whether I don't know if that's the case in this particular instance, sometimes the engineers want to do the right thing, but they need you to cry out in order to put the pressure on their own company to make them do the right thing.
Well, and then whenever it comes to a situation with DRM, there's really multiple parties involved, and yet you're only seeing the platform. So if it's the iTunes or the whatever have you, what you're not seeing is behind those closed doors, all of the different vendors and the contractual agreements that platform has with those in order to bring that content to you. So whether it's movies or music or video games, DRM is not something that I feel like any particular platform necessarily wants.
Well, let's follow the money here. I guess you could make an argument that if I make a game for the Oculus, I want someone to have to buy it again if they have an HTC Vive, right? But how many people out there are going to buy both virtual reality headsets at the prices they're at? Not very many. That can't be a big consideration. So the only other financial interest that I can think of that is in any way significant is Oculus itself saying, well, I want people to buy the Oculus Rift, so I don't want them to go and buy games meant for the Rift and then play them on the Vive. So this had to have been an internal thing, right?
Right, but then you also have to accept the fact that we're in such early adopter land and such the infancy of this technology that you may have to just make certain concessions in order to just spur the industry. And then, it may lock down even more later on as it matures.
Yeah. Meanwhile, everybody wants to get into live streaming. Facebook, which owns Oculus, they're pushing Facebook Live like crazy. They're down there at VidCon. My wife, who works at YouTube, is down at VidCon. Everybody's down at VidCon. And in fact, YouTube is at VidCon. In a blog post yesterday, YouTube announced live streaming coming to their mobile app. The live stream will feature comments overlaid on the video stream, and users will be able to search live video. So yeah, they're doing the same thing that Periscope and Facebook Live do, but they're also allowing you to search live video, which they say they can do better than anybody else. Feature has rolled out to select creators attending VidCon, so you can't get it, neither can I, but wider availability is coming soon. YouTube also announced a creator hub with a benefits program and a promise to have actual people respond by email to creator support questions within 1 business day.
I don't know. I feel like YouTube Live is kind of their wave or buzz. It's just it's had like the hardest time getting off the ground, and there keeps
It's
being all
kind of
these
like
different,
Buzz, yeah.
yeah, there keeps being like these
Wave was
restarts.
different from anything, but Buzz was definitely a Me Too, like, oh, we're going to be Dig now, or we're going to be Twitter now.
Right. Okay. Well, but I mean, it was innovative and cool, but it didn't get that kind of foothold, and so it had to like keep having these restarts. And part of it was just the hurdles in order to get going. And so I think
Oh,
I've
I see.
seen like 3 different major incarnations, and so this will be like the 4th major. Google Hangouts being like probably the best incarnation to date of it. So hopefully this just makes it easier, and then maybe
Well,
this
this is meant for the phone, right? And
Right.
granted, you could do Google Hangouts on the phone, but this says you're in the YouTube app. Guess what? Now you can go live, just like Periscope. Like they're definitely targeting this at Periscope and Facebook Live.
Yeah, and part of it is just so awesome to see how far we've come in that, years ago, networks would just like balk at the whole concept of streaming on mobile. So it's nice.
Well, and that's that's an interesting concept too. Like streaming on mobile is something you had to convince people to do. So Meerkat came along and somehow captured the imagination, and then Periscope came along and was able to steal Meerkat's thunder by basically being on Twitter. By saying, Meerkat, you can't auto-post to Twitter anymore. Guess what? Periscope can. And our big advantage is that now you can actually save your streams for later viewing. That was their big innovation over Meerkat. Then Facebook Live came along and everyone said, well, how are they going to beat Periscope? The way they beat Periscope was essentially paying a bunch of people in traditional media that might not broadcast live to broadcast live. And so suddenly you're seeing all these big names going live on Facebook. And if you're a Facebook user, you see it pop up in your feed all the time. And so Facebook Live has got momentum because of that. Now, and by the way, Facebook had their own Facebook Live announcements. They're going to start doing two-way Facebook Live streaming. But now you have YouTube saying, okay, well, how do we get in here? We can emphasize search because it's easier to find streams for us because we do search really well. But I guess the other thing is creators. So if you're a fan of YouTube, which I know we aren't necessarily, but a lot of people are, especially people younger than me, your favorite creator can now be streaming live like they would on Periscope without having to use Periscope.
Right, and so those Periscopes and those Facebook Live videos, they have the good user experience that hopefully Google can capture in the mobile app. But then the question becomes, do they have the platform, the Twitter or the Facebook feed, to get the eyeballs? And while YouTube is in of itself, I guess, a social network, I wouldn't say Google Plus, the concept of taking some of those elements of that and making it its own thing, has been that successful. So I think that's really where their success hinges.
Well, I think they can overcome that for the creators because, the Young Turks of the world can just get their fans like, hey, we're streaming live now, and it doesn't really matter whether it's on Twitter or not. But yeah, I don't know if you'll see the groundswell use like you do with Periscope.
Yep.
Which, frankly, Facebook Live doesn't have as much of that groundswell either, but it at least is built into the platform to be a social network, so you're going to see a lot more of it on Facebook than you would on YouTube. Uber's been testing a new version of its app that presents a dynamically priced fare when you put in the destination. If surge pricing is in effect, text under the fare will note increased demand, but you won't see the lightning bolt or the amount the fares are being multiplied by. You won't see that 1.3x or whatever. Uber began upfront pricing in Uber Pool and has been testing it for UberX in 5 Indian cities, as well as 6 cities in the U.S. since April. Uber expects to roll out the changes to the rest of the world over the next few months. So we mentioned this before when it was rumored or when it was being tested and people started to notice. But Uber's saying, we are going to just not make a big deal out of surge pricing anymore. The price you get is the price you get, and it can vary depending on when you put your destination in.
Yeah, I like this. And although I must say it's probably not going to change my Uber usage, which since the Australia trip has been like dramatically more, in that, it's like a very convenient way to get around through Google Maps. That's how I actually use it the most. Is I'll pick a destination by Google Maps and see what the various options to get there are, whether it's driving or public transit, walking, whatever have you. But the fact that it integrates not just Uber, but also if you have Lyft, it'll show you Lyft prices and give you kind of an estimate. That's kind of how I've been going. And then when it comes to the surge pricing and all of that, it's so confusing on their side anyway that I just haven't really thought about it. I don't think at any point it has become so much so that I've just been like, forget it.
I wish that increased fare pricing is a little faint. I wish it was a little more up in my, very easy to see. Because I do like to know, like, hey, the price is a little higher right now. That's interesting. But it has never. Well, I shouldn't say never. There have been a couple of times when it's been so high that I'm like, forget that. But the actual amount is going to be showed, so you can already decide, like, no, I'm not paying $70 to take an Uber right now. Like, that's still up front. So, yeah, I don't need the lightning bolt. I don't need to do the math in my head, as Uber keeps saying. I think this is overall a better experience for everybody. Sakani, who drives for Uber, wrote in and he complains about Uber Pool. He's like, Uber Pool's a ripoff. The drivers actually make less money on Uber Pool, and you can read his email in the show notes about that if you want. But he said on the positive side, this new system could cut down on the number of passengers who don't put in a destination, because you only get the quote if you put in a destination. He said, if you're one of those people, believe me when I say that your driver hates it when you do that. The drivers want to know the destination.
Right, but from what I understand, they don't know the destination before they even pick you up. So if you're just going across the street, they're not going to cancel you.
Right? No, they can't. But it still is annoying to them when they finally get to that point and they're like, oh, you didn't give me that. Now I have to talk to you and listen. How do you spell that? It's just much easier if you put it in there. In a cool proof of concept, researchers at Ben-Gurion University of the Negev have been testing ways to exfiltrate data from air-gapped computers. Air-gapped computers don't have any connections to any other computers. No network connection, nothing. A lot of hacks on this have used speakers. So you get the computer to make a noise, and then you can use that noise to sort of interpret data. This is for computers that don't even have speakers. They've been able to use the cooling fan. HelpNet Security describes it. They say the attack is called Fansmitter. Software controls the fan's speed, which can then affect the acoustic waveform coming from the computer. They demonstrated the transmission of keys and passwords at distances of up to 8 meters at a bit rate of 900 bits per hour. Now, if you want to hear that in your megabits per second, bits per second would be 1/4 of a bit per second. Is how fast that would go. I mean, if you're only doing a password, though, I guess that's doable. And the biggest trick, Darren, of course, is getting the malware on the air-gapped computer in the first place to execute this fan control.
Right, there has been so much really cool research about this recently, and I love it. It's like there's all of these fun party favors of ways to like show like, hey, I can get data off this computer that's not connected to a network, because networks, whether it's Wi-Fi or Ethernet, whatever, are just the traditional means of transmitting data, but that wasn't even always the case. And so the concept of like, okay, well, anything that the computer does as output, quote unquote, can be used to exfiltrate data. So any sound that it makes, any potential radio waves that can be made just with the CPU doing certain calculations can be picked up. So output is really interesting and easy because there's a million different factors that, the radiation of your computer, the heat of your computer, there's so many different things that anything that you can vary is output. It's the input that's more difficult. And so I think this is really cool research. I love hearing this stuff. I don't know how much you're going to see in practical use outside of some clandestine operation that you'll never know about. However, I'd love to see more as far as like input is concerned, because it's
all you got to do is get the USB drive into your friend's hand, who then steals one of the key cards and then sneaks down the corridor past the guards and then plugs it in. I mean, I've seen the movies, Darren. It's that easy.
You should come to one of our Pen Test with Hack 5 workshops. We'll teach you about the USB rubber ducking. You'll see that, yes, actually it is.
It actually is. I know.
It actually is.
It's frightening. I was going to make a joke that I've been at one of those. You just never noticed. But
oh, that's true.
It's also not true. Wired's Davey Alba has a story on how the Amazon Echo is, in the headline's opinion, winning the race to a screenless future. The Echo passed more than 1,000 skills this month. Skills are kind of like apps. They're things that the Echo can do with third-party services. So like turn on your lights, read RSS feeds, stuff like that. Key advantage for Amazon is Amazon Web Services and AWS Lambda. That means Echo only has to run a small amount of code. The rest of it is cloud-powered, and Amazon is very good at cloud power. It also has been collecting data. I mean, Amazon has since 2014, making its machine learning algorithms better. And the longer you can collect data, the more data you can collect, the better your machine learning can get. Those of you shouting privacy, just hold on for a second. We're not going to deal with, wait, what data are they collecting? Let's just assume they're doing it right. You still need to collect data, even if it's anonymized and differential privacy and all of that, to get machine learning. So that's better. I am more curious, Darren, what you think of this idea of a screenless future.
I like it. I mean, we've seen the future by way of Star Trek: The Next Generation, where you ask computer inverse the tachyon pulse through the main deflector array, and it spits back some gobbledygook. So why not, right? I think that the concept of telling, in fact, I think there's something innately human about like barking commands to an inanimate object and having it do your wishes. You're like, Mwahaha. Like I love that.
Yeah.
So. I think that Amazon is killing it right now. I think Echo as a platform has a lot of potential. I think there's a lot of awesome opportunities in open source and some of the other, like their Puck and the other, I forget the names of the other products that they've launched in relationship to are concerned. I've seen really cool hacks with Raspberry Pis. I don't know. I think it was surprising. I wouldn't have envisioned this. This wouldn't have been on my prediction, but. And when it first came out, I was like, "Oh, that's kind of stupid."
I remember buying one, saying, "Well, I really should buy it so that I can talk about it, but I don't know what I'm going to use it for." And it's slowly worming its way more and more. I was listening to all the Brexit coverage yesterday on the Amazon Echo because I can get the BBC World Service to turn on just by talking to it.
Right? I mean, I'm like wondering, like, what is it about this? And I can't put my finger on it other than to say that, like, we as humans love, like, telling someone what to do and then having them just do it. So like the servant, as it were, is pressing some sort of human button there, I feel like. But I find that like all my friends have these now.
Well, we want a conversational interface. You hear that a lot with bots, right? Conversational interface. And it's the same with the things you speak to with these screenless interfaces where you like, oh, I don't even have to type because we think conversationally. We think I want to listen to the BBC World Service, and then you have to translate it to like, okay, well, that means I need to open this app, type this in, even with a conversational interface, or find the BBC app, then find the button. Whereas if you're talking to an Amazon Echo, or you're talking to a Siri, or Cortana, or Google, you just say the first thing you thought. You don't have to go interpret it more. Right. That's the perfect ideal anyway.
Yes, and we've definitely bought into it over here. We've got a project going right now in the studio where what we want to do is rewire the studio such that we can walk in and say, to whatever the keyword is, computer, bring up the lights, switch to the ThreatWire camera, and open up the recording template. Like, there's no reason why any of that can't happen. And
the biggest problem is trigger words, right?
Yeah.
Because your trigger word has to be something that isn't accidentally going to be said a lot. Let me tell you, and I apologize for anybody watching this on the computer console from Microsoft right now, but Xbox is a horrible trigger word. It gets said a lot in my household. Whereas the Amazon Echo's trigger word, which I won't say, is not necessary to say, and unless you have a daughter or friend named that, it's not as likely to turn on. I do think they should still give you some alternative trigger words.
Yeah, we do need a better, in fact, we need a universal one that'll work across all platforms.
Bliggerty blop.
Exactly, we definitely need
something that's just not going to come up.
And not computer, although I love just like,
I know.
Riker says computer.
Yeah.
Okay,
but then that's definitely going to turn it on. No, it should be Blergle or
Blergle. Okay, let's
blocker.
I think Blergle has a lot of potential there.
Bliggerty blop actually is pretty good. Yeah, I wonder if you could do a linguistic analysis of what phonemes are least likely to come up in combination and create like the perfect trigger word.
So the perfect anti-word.
Yeah.
The QWERTY of words, as the faux backstory to the keyboard and how it's laid out, as to slow you down the most as possible, as typewriters would jam back in the day. I don't believe that, but the QWERTY of words.
Blergle for Google.
Maybe it is QWERTY. QWERTY's cute. I like QWERTY.
Yeah, but we say QWERTY. We just said it a bunch of times.
Ah, dang it, Dvorak. No, that doesn't work either. All right, we're moving on.
Revisions to Privacy Shield, that's the agreement on data transfer between the EU and the US, were sent for review to European member states Thursday night. If you remember, the previous safe harbor system that said, okay, it'll be easy for companies from the US to transfer data to Europe and back again, were thrown out because of concerns over US surveillance practices. They developed Privacy Shield. Privacy Shield provided some more safeguards, was newly negotiated. would hopefully pass the court's review, but the individual privacy agencies in Europe said we're still not sure about the details. So this new revision provides more details on the conditions under which U.S. intelligence services collect and safeguard data, and a vote on it is expected in early July. So there you go. No more troubles in Europe, Darren. We've solved it. This is going to make everything perfect.
I can't wait for the new world order coming from the EU. It's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, or maybe not. We're actually going to talk about the Brexit here in a second. Thanks to all those who participate in our subreddit. Submit stories and vote on them at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. Get in there, like PC Guy 8088, Loki Robert, Another J Martin, Motang, Kyle, who is the janitor and keeps us spam free, also submitting stories. Loop Garu. You could have your name in there too, dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. Even if we don't necessarily use the link in the show, it helps us know what kinds of things you're interested in, and other people coming to the subreddit benefit it. So get in there and vote. That's a look at the top stories. All right, let's get serious for a second here. With the United Kingdom voting to negotiate their departure from the European Union, a lot of folks are trying to figure out what this means for tech. And some blogs are just trying to come up with a way to capitalize on everybody paying attention to this, but there are some actual things to be concerned about. Let us start with the fact that nothing is happening now, and nothing is going to happen in the near future. Prime Minister David Cameron has indicated the country will not send the official notice until after he steps down in October. So between now and October, absolutely nothing is going to happen.
Unless,
after that notice,
the EU says you can't quit, you're fired.
They can't even do that, actually, because after the process notification is sent, it takes 2 years during which they will negotiate the exit. So for 2 years after October, nothing is going to happen. Nothing is going to change, legally speaking. However, once that notice is sent, and in fact, already starting today, people are behaving in anticipation of this happening. So it can change some behaviors. They are going to have to negotiate new trade agreements, new immigration deals, things that will directly affect tech companies. And we don't know how those negotiations are going to go. In an ideal world, right, nothing changes. That's not what's going to happen, but that's one end of the possibility. So, the truth is nobody knows what this is going to mean for tech, and for the moment, nothing is changing. But we have some, I was looking at the Next Web, I was looking at Fortune, I was looking at all the blogs today. And in fact, Fortune's David Meyer, I think, did a great job of summarizing some of these main issues. So let's go through these 5 main technology issues that you want to be thinking about. First is regulation. EU regulation, very obviously on this show, we've talked about it, has been going after companies to crack down, right to be forgotten, Google News licensing. The UK has often swayed the EU to regulate more lightly. They will no longer be able to do that, Darren.
Right, and you know what? Here's the thing. This isn't just a UK problem. I feel like this is indicative of like a greater world problem. When you think about it, regulation-wise, the internet exploded in the 90s because the lack thereof. The cloud knows no borders inherently, and honestly, I don't want to live in a world where my packets require a passport. The EU has done a lot of good as far as like coming up with very consumer-focused data protection policies. But I feel like it's actually a part of a bigger picture that just leads into things like, the general data protection regulations and such, and that's where we have some other opportunities. In fact,
yeah, and let's bring that up. We just mentioned that the new Privacy Shield agreement between the EU and the US has a new revision. It's still not guaranteed that will pass, but the UK, after 2 years from now, will likely not be part of that agreement. So new agreement has to be struck with the EU as part of the negotiated exit. A new agreement will have to be struck with the United States, and we don't know what that agreement will be. Companies might be required by the EU, if they're in the UK, to store European members' data in the EU, which would mean suddenly a bunch of UK companies are like, hey, we're in the EU. We can just store it here in London. Won't be able to do that anymore.
Well, here's the thing, Tom, about the general data protection regulations, the way I see it. I feel like it's actually only even needed because of the inadequacies of data protection that we have in general, right? So I feel like it has nothing to do with any specific nation. And not to sound like a crypto anarchist or anything, but this isn't an EU-specific problem. I feel like it's one that should be solved on the technology level with proper cryptography such that, no one has access to said data other than account holders. Not your ISP, not your government, not law enforcement, and certainly not the ISP or the online service even holding the data.
Well, and that's a great point, too, because how governments treat encryption and whether they're in favor of strong encryption or surveillance varies. But the EU has been very friendly to encryption, at least up until recently, and the UK has not.
That's
the
interesting.
UK has the Snoopers Charter.
Where's that GCHQ place? Is that in Switzerland?
No, that's in England.
Somewhere else.
Yeah.
Oh, right, England. Okay.
All right, let's talk about something that might not be as strong in England. And this is the sort of thing that can start having an effect now as people anticipate it, when they don't know what's going to be negotiated. The startup and studio scene. Startups in the UK benefit right now from being able to hire talent from anywhere in Europe. Suddenly, a lot of their employees may have to get visas, may have to get approval. They also won't be able to recruit as easily. It's not like they won't be able to. In fact, some startups are saying this is being overblown. We'll be able to do a little paperwork and it'll be fine. But it is not as easy as it is right now. And some companies may choose to incorporate in Berlin or Paris or somewhere else in Europe, rather than in the UK, because they want that access to the talent pool. In fact, a lot of people in Berlin, a lot of organizations in Berlin are crowing today. Christoph Gerlinger, the CEO of venture capital firm German Startups Group, says they expect a significant decrease in new incorporations in London in favor of Berlin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm no startup, but I can say as a business in general, I've been paying attention to this for quite some time because the pound sterling's been hovering at like what, $1.60 or so for the last 5 years. Today, taking a tank to about the 130s. That's massive. I got a call this morning from one of my manufacturers, in fact, because their business is 30% UK based, with just like a hey, heads up, there might be some price increases of certain components because of where we're doing business. And I'm like, that's really interesting. I thought you moved part of your business to the UK in order to do business in the EU more easily. And he's like, yeah, and might be reconsidering that one now. So, that's just like anecdotal evidence. But if you're in the UK specifically to be doing business in the EU, now it's not as attractive, whether you're a startup or an established company.
Now, again, these are the sort of things that the UK may be able to negotiate friendly trade deals with, the way the United States has friendly trade deals with the EU, and maybe it won't be as big a deal. But right now, there's a lot of uncertainty around that, and this currency crash is something that may bounce right back. It may just be market jitters, or it may not be. We don't know any of that stuff. This next one is more of an issue for people in the UK. The EU has been doing a lot of things with digital single market. So in other words, hey, if I'm a Netflix subscriber in France, when I travel to Germany, I shouldn't be forced to use the German version. I should still be able to use my French version. Roaming rules that say, hey, you know what? You can't charge these crazy roaming rates on people when they're moving around within the European Union. Net neutrality rules. None of this is guaranteed to apply. Now, the UK might be able to set their own net neutrality rule to be the same. Maybe they'll do that. The UK might be able to negotiate a deal with carriers to say, well, we're going to require you to follow the same rules as the EU. But those things are yet to be decided.
Yeah, here's the thing about this. I feel like this really all just comes down to control. And since the dawn of the internet, and especially since, in regards to economics, the technologies like Bitcoin or the blockchain, we've had the opportunity for true world economies, and yet status quo will always tighten their grip and hold on to those old world philosophies of control. And so I feel like, this isn't even specific to economics either. There's no rational reason why we can't operate as a whole like this, and yet we've seen more and more GeoIPs and borders and things of this nature. So this just really brings to light those sorts of things, this artificial concept of control, and I feel like the more we let go of that, the more harmonious we'll operate as a species, because otherwise we're just going to be doomed to live on little islands.
Well, and that's the thing. When you had the United Kingdom in the EU, they were part of a single block, right? So spectrum allocation is the last thing on our list. When spectrum is allocated across the EU, that allocated for the UK, that was one less country that had to be considered. And then when you go across the border, you're like, okay, can we harmonize our spectrum? And it becomes more difficult for two different countries to do that sort of thing. I mean, the fact that we had CDMA for so long in the United States, and then when you traveled abroad, you're like, oh, everything's GSM here. Oh, wait, I'm in Japan now, it's CDMA, is an example of that. So now the UK is going to be, again, outside of that, and it's going to be more complicated. As spectrum gets allocated for 5G, the EU is attempting to harmonize it across Europe even more so. And that's not to say that the UK couldn't still play along with that harmonization, but they don't have to, because they're not part of it. So that makes the negotiation more complex.
Right. So we're talking about the UK leaving a small club of the world called the EU. Could you imagine the UK leaving a much larger club of the world called the United Nations? I mean, there's a reason why we have these much larger governing bodies, because sometimes there's things that affect the whole planet. Case in point, the International Telecommunications Union, a part of the United Nations, deals specifically with satellite orbits and spectrum and finite resources that we as a species need to, work together to allocate right. And while this is trivial in nature, we're talking about some tech stuff like radio frequencies, I feel like it illustrates the bigger point of working together. And I unfortunately have seen firsthand what happens when you get all those people in the room and everybody's like, well, we don't do it that way here. And it's just frustrating because you see the potential, and yet at the same time, it's like, how are we ever going to get to the United Federation of Planets?
Right. There was a great graphic that I saw yesterday. And I wish I could remember all the parts of it, but how people who voted Remain saw the future was the next generation, and how people who voted Leave saw the future was the empire. And there were a couple other features like that as well. But that's the thing. Maybe, just to take the other side here, maybe not having the UK and the EU will force us to create wider ITU type organizations to harmonize these sorts of things, right? Maybe it will be a force that says, hey, you know what, you're right. It shouldn't just matter if you're in the EU or not. We all should be cooperating on a lot of things. Maybe we don't need to centralize all this bureaucracy and all this government to do this. Maybe we could all get together on the things that benefit us and do international worldwide standards instead of just within a particular region.
Yeah, I mean, no, I feel you. Decentralize is the way to go, ultimately, because you don't want to have all the power in one particular place, but at the same time, you don't want everybody, certain people taking off the friendship bracelet.
That's what the UK just did? They took off the friendship
bracelet? Yeah, and
bracelet.
they're going to deal with their own internal friendship bracelet issues as,
because Scotland's like, I think we're taking off our friendship bracelet now. What do you think about that? Yeah.
Yo, dog, I see what you're doing there. Yeah, this is going to be an interesting 2-year divorce process. Like UK's like, listen, we're keeping the couch. And the EU's like, no, we went 50-50 on that couch, right? I want the ottoman.
Who gets the channel? Yeah. No, I know. I know it's not, don't write in, and it's a joke. It's a joke. I made a joke yesterday about like, okay, so what continent is UK part of now that it left Europe? Aww. And of course, people who are very sensitive about this, like, we're not leaving Europe. We're still part of Europe. We're just not
or you could do what the Germans do every time they go to the UK, which is they fly home with a rock.
Just take a little piece of it every time?
Just take a rock every time.
I had no idea.
Yeah, it's something the military does there.
Let's get to our pick of the day from Kiwi Red, from T-Shirt Ready Midwinter, Christchurch, New Zealand. He's a fan of creative magic systems in fiction, and the novel Nameless by Matthew Rossi delivered that in an entertaining and urban fantasy setting, people with characters who were pleasantly not one-dimensional, including villains whose motivations weren't comic book thin. You can check it out on Amazon. We'll have a link to that. Again, the name is Nameless by Matthew Rossi. Tons of great feedback from people about our discussion around self-driving cars and the ethics that they will have to deal with in programming. Real quickly running through, a lot of people like, it's an odd question. Josh compared it to a grenade. He said, you might fall on a grenade to save people, but you wouldn't buy one to jump on, and that's kind of the question they were asking. Maybe each car could have an option. A lot of people said this. Like, let's just avoid the question. Let the person in the self-driving car choose. Joe said, what if it was an option and we got to choose when we were calibrating your car? RJ says the decisions of self-driving car should be done in software, so there's no reason that the choice made to protect the occupants of the vehicle couldn't be a user-selected mode. A lot of people said it depends on who's in the car. If someone in the other side has Ebola, I want to make sure that they are protected and get on their way, even though it's a single occupant. However, if they're a bunch of terrorists, maybe I don't want to protect them. Ron said, who's responsible if somebody thinks the system made the wrong choice? Because someone will likely claim the wrong party was saved. Jake said, at least for now, their priorities are reducing the risk factors and ever getting into a situation where moral decisions are needed. So this is a question that shouldn't be a priority for developers yet anyway. And Alan said, I don't think that's the way it works. I think maybe at best you can say they may have to program a tendency. Can you tell me what the car will do? And the answer will be, if you tell me the readings on these hundreds of sensors in the car's driving history and thousands of factors from other cars in the network, then maybe I could tell you what it's likely to do. But it's not like it's one line of code, which leads us to Liam in barometrically stochastic Sydney, who says, I'm a software engineer with quite a lot of experience in machine learning, and I just listened to the discussion on self-driving cars. I don't think an engineer will need to explicitly program the car to save passengers or pedestrians. Instead, its behavior in new situations will be an emergent property of its machine learning model. It's not possible to hard code responses to every situation. So the machine learning model will be trained on a large data set of situations and told how to behave in each case. Then in the real world, when it's being bombarded with situations that don't fit nicely into any of its training examples, it'll do its best to interpolate the correct behavior from what it knows. Now, I suppose it's possible that one of the training examples involves choosing between saving 10 pedestrians or 1 passenger, and that has been told the correct behavior in that specific case. But there are always going to be cases that the machine learning model hasn't seen. And in these cases, the model itself will have to make the decision. Realistically, I think it's more likely that when the car is losing control, the model will just keep trying to regain control and never really make the sort of decision that this survey was asking.
I've seen this in drones where they try to write themselves ad nauseum to the point of failure. So that actually brings up an even scarier thing, which is, forget it like deciding whether or not it's going to kill you or someone else. It may be, in fact, let me just throw a wrench in the whole discussion right now and say self-driving motorcycle. You getting on one?
Sure. Once it's deemed reliable. Yeah, absolutely. Because a motorcycle is incredibly dangerous right now. So it will be most likely less dangerous by the time it's viable. What you're proposing is a fear tactic, which is, hey, this one thing doesn't work very well right now, so someday you might get on this thing and it not work very well.
No, what I'm actually proposing, Tom, is would you get on a self-driving motorcycle to lane split down the 405 while reading a book? And you may trust that motorcycle, but at the end of the day, guess what? 99.99999% of the other vehicles on the road are human driving, and they have,
for now,
like everyone else.
You didn't ask me if I'd get on it today. I definitely wouldn't get on it today. But once the machine learning is good enough, and once the majority of the other cars on the 405 that I'm lane splitting are also algorithmically driven, then hell yeah, I'm getting on it.
All right. Are you in favor of banning human drivers?
Not banning. No, I'm almost never in favor of banning anything. But yeah, I think we'll get to a point where we'll do a carpool lane situation where like all the self-driving cars go over here, all the human-driven cars are over here. Those lanes will get less and less over time.
Could be interesting to see where there's more self-driving cars than human-driving cars. The requirements for licenses, you have to go to the DMV and provide that you are at least as good as a computer.
Right. Well, that is it for this episode of Daily Tech News Show. Thank you, Darren Kitchen. What are you up to these days people can take advantage of out there?
Oh, awesome stuff. We are getting into all sorts of fun things over at hak5.org. As always, just covering some fun ways that you can tunnel all of your traffic through VPNs over wireless routers. Build yourself a travel router so that all of your packets always go securely through the internet. It's fun stuff. It's all DIY, hands-on. Learn how to over at hak5.org. And find myself and Shannon Morris and Patrick Norton and all of our other shows like ThreatWire and Tech Thing and Metasploit Minute over at Hack5.
Len Peralta has been drawing a 404 page for the United Kingdom. This is what the EU will see when they search for the United Kingdom within 2 years.
Yes. You know, it was you asked me at the beginning of the show, can I draw Brexit, which is a very kind of esoteric topic, and especially drawing Brexit as it relates to tech. And so I gave it some thought. I wanted to do something that felt techie, but also kind of commentated on the whole situation in the UK right now, without necessarily getting too political about things. And the 404 page seemed like a pretty good way to deal with it. It says it's an error code, country not found. We can't seem to locate the country you're searching for. So if this upsets anybody over in the UK, I apologize. That wasn't the intention, but I was trying to come up with something that was very tech-related with Brexit, which of course is a very highly politically charged idea. So
Go check it out, lenperaltastore.com, and remember, Americans, we're not going to throw any mud here. All right.
Yeah.
right.
Let us know what you think of the show too, folks. We're taking a survey these days, bit.ly/2016 DTNS. You can find a link in the Patreon as well, patreon.com/DTNS, which is how we support the show. Our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. You can give us a call, 512-59-DAILY. Catch the show live Monday through Friday, 4:30 p.m. Eastern at alphageekradio.com and diamondclub.tv. And visit our website, dailytechnewsshow.com. Back on Monday with Veronica Belmont. Talk to you then.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Nicely done.
Boom.
Very well.
People are
Len,
already pointing out you don't have Northern Ireland on there.
I know.
you know what, I feel like what's another thing to take into consideration, Len, is there's another HTTP error code in the 400s, error 418.
Yes.
I'm a teapot. From Merritt 2324. You know how they love their tea over there.
And actually, this, it was funny.
Teapot. That's funny.
I never realized how much of the UK and Great Britain looks like a little bunny running. Do you see it?
Absolutely.
It's got the little bunny ears and it's running. I was trying to come up with something. Maybe it's something funny with a bunny, but I don't know.
Down the rabbit hole.
Down the rabbit hole, exactly. Yeah, this was a tough one. I was thinking, I can draw something with Brexit.
Ooh, you know what? Maybe error code 421, misdirected request.
That's pretty good,
I don't know.
too.
That one starts to sound political.
All right, 426, upgrade required.
Yes.
Upgrade required. I can change that one. I don't know. Is
Oh,
404 too? That's too.
No, everyone knows 404.
No, 404 is the one everyone knows. And Nate Langson actually mentioned this morning, like he was looking at the 404 page on Bloomberg. He's like, "This is how I feel today." So.
Yeah, it was that was a tough one because I didn't want to, it's very politically charged. I didn't want to say anything that was going to be upsetting to anybody who was listening to you in another country. So I'm sorry if I did that.
I don't think you did. I think that was handled well. I think Northern Ireland not being there is going to bother people more than the 404 error.
Yeah.
The only reason Northern Ireland is because when I grabbed the image, it didn't have Northern Ireland on it. So I was like, now I'm like, I probably should have just pulled it over.
Yeah, maybe they're like, don't worry about it. We're out anyway.
That's right.
Us in Scotland, we're
well, right. I mean, they're not necessarily, but that is something that might come up. You never know.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fascinating turn of events.
Really is.
And it's one, like when you take the 100,000 feet perspective, which you should bring oxygen to do, you look at this and you're like, yeah, well, the UK never wanted to be unified with currency. They waited until the 70s to join the common market. Or the European Community Market, whatever, I can't remember what it was called back then. And so they've always been dragging. They've always been like, not quite sure that they wanted to do this. They were one of the last to get conquered by the Roman Empire, for goodness sake. Mm-hmm. So it's not. If I were writing the story, I would be like, yeah, at some point they're just going to back out. But then you have the Treaty of Union of 1707 with Scotland now possibly going to fall apart, which is a much bigger deal because that's been centuries that those two countries have been united.
Interesting. It's very interesting.
And the queen would still be the queen of both, by the way. So it wouldn't dissolve the treaty. It would dissolve the unification of the parliaments.
I read something today which is sort of funny. Someone trying to put this in perspective for Americans. This is where you can start, and they were saying that like, well, a lot of Game of Thrones is shot in this part of the country, and now it's going to be harder for them to shoot there, and
except they'll be done with their seasons by the time this gets resolved. I think.
Yeah, it's still 2 years, right? I mean,
yeah.
there's still a lot to figure out. So,
but a lot of like Doctor Who shoots. Well, they shoot mostly in country, I guess, but still.
That's actually probably their biggest bargaining chip right now in order to keep concessions with the EU as far as the economics of the situation. Be like, look,
Do you want to keep getting Doctor Who, France?
Right?
Could you imagine if it were that? If it came down to entertainment?
I'm only half joking.
No, I am too. I think it could come down to entertainment.
Listen, do you want people in Germany to not get called a midwife? That can happen.
Right.
So Doctor Who is shot in Wales, apparently.
Mostly, yeah.
Well.
That's where it's based. It's BBC Wales production.
Still, though, they could be like, look, we're taking our Spice Girls back.
Well, I mean, I didn't read it, but there was an article about, what effect is this going to have on soccer teams? Because, they recruit their players from all over the world, but if they recruit a European player, then now that will be an immigration issue the same way it would be recruiting someone from Brazil versus now where it's easier. So
I wonder how this is going to affect AFC Wimbledon.
I wonder how this will affect British food.
Don't worry.
Making a comeback.
This is good.
No, it's getting good. That's my point.
What?
British
Yes,
food?
British food is getting good. It's the best kept secret in England.
Scotch eggs.
But will it stay that when the French cut off the garlic supply? I don't. That's horrible. It's very stereotypical.
It just seems like it's an odd step backwards to the globalization world that we've seen.
But when Scotland wanted to leave, that felt like progress. Like, oh yes, we're breaking up into more natural units. So isn't that what this is?
You know what? You're right. Everyone gets a country. Texas, finally, you can have your
You get a country.
California.
You get a
country. Sovereignty for everyone.
I mean, the UK already has their Commonwealth. They could start their own union again.
It's like that episode of Mr. Show where everybody has their own, everybody is their own country.
Yeah.
So there's a guy, David Cross plays a guy who's out in the wilderness who has to pay himself, and then he walks around, and then he gives himself a piece of bark, and that is his currency. But he's paying himself just to give himself a bottle, a bucket of water or something like that. Oh, that's ridiculous. Maybe that's what's next.
I think that's where we're headed. We'll all be individual limited liability countries.
Well, I will claim the country of kitchen, and our currency will be noodles.
Okay. Okay.
I'm trading with you.
I am. This is Lenland. Our currency will be business cards.
I was about to say, because I would sell spaghetti noodles to Lenland.
Oh, hey, by the way, spaghetti. I don't think spaghetti night is no longer, because my wife no longer works on Fridays. She switched hours. So.
Wait, what? What happened to Friday spaghetti night?
She actually made it last week, so I shouldn't say that it's completely.
All right.
There go your plans for the noodle monopoly.
Yeah, I know, right? I thought I had at least one customer.
Wait a minute. Now I understand what's happening.
I'm going to declare Meritopia. Where we'll
meritocracy there.
Yeah, our currency will be Bitcoin.
Oh, wait a minute. You're so much smarter, man. Why did I say business cards?
Or Dogecoin? Should it be Dogecoin?
I was about to say, why isn't it Ace Coin?
I was gonna say nobody. Yeah, I'll just make my own. I'll fork it. Why not?
Fork
Just do my own blockchain.
Right. I'll invest in Ace Coin. I wonder how many techno bucks you can get for that.
Oh yeah, the Technobuck Ace Coin exchange rate is quite favorable right now. Ian's like, now it's starting to sound like a Charles Stross novel. Yeah, Yes, Meritopia will be a meritocracy. If you're named
Sounds
Merritt, you
cool.
can rise to the top. Better change your name, Rivera. Kidding. She didn't have to change her name.
Wow, that's the first time that I've even considered that. Interesting.
What? The meritocracy? Or
No.
Eileen changing her name?
Yeah, the YouTube wife.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, sounds like a new show on
Yeah.
NBC.
CBS.
Yeah.
That's what I was
Coming
going
to
to say.
CBS
YouTube
this
wife.
autumn.
It's the #1 show. You missed last night's YouTube wife. You missed it all.
Starring Linda Carter.
As the YouTube wife.
Oh, you heard she got cast as the president of the United States in Supergirl, right?
Yep.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's good to see her back.
I have a Linda Carter picture disc.
This land is Len land. This land is not my land. From Len's on front lawn to Len's back garden. From the left side neighbor to his right side street.
So good.
Nicely done, Ken.
This
Well done.
land is Len land.
Chicago's been on fire today.
Yeah.
That's very, very good.
I now need to read up on Operation Anthropoid. I don't think Anthropoid is going to catch on as the key word for the conversational bots.
I mean, it's rare, but it's not impossible that it would come up.
YouTube Life 9 Central.
I
Blurgle
feel like
snozzle,
it needs to
on
be
the
a
other
new
hand.
word.
By the way, I'm
Hey,
picking Blurgle as my trigger as the title.
Blurgle.
Oh, I didn't even check the Showbot. What are we doing?
Yeah, I opened it up now here
This is
too.
what happens. Roger's not here, and we're off the rails.
I know.
DTNS exit. It looks like DTN Sexit.
Oh, actually,
yeah,
I love.
think that's on
Ken
purpose.
From Chicago mentioned Texas exiting would be a Texit.
Right.
That's so good.
There was somebody I saw. They had all the exits for different countries. So there was.
I like
There was.
Blurgle as my trigger is good.
Fruxit.
Italieve? No. Itali. I can't remember.
Italieve. No, I think that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that it?
Mm.
That sounds right. I mean, I saw different ones too, but I definitely saw Italieve on one of them.
I'll tell you. Man. Now I'm gonna sound stupid. I
Port to get out of here.
I want
No,
Blurgle
no.
as my safe word.
Here, hang on a second. I'll get it.
Belgium.
No, they were actually very, very good. And I thought, that's very clever. Very clever. Someone's very clever.
You're so clever.
Here it is. Brexit. Belgium for Belgium.
Belgium. There we go.
De Portugal.
The
Ooh,
Portugal.
Dude,
That's
the
better.
Portugal.
Check out. So
Czech Republic.
check
Yeah.
out. Italy.
Nice.
Finish with one N. Donagary. Nethermind.
I love that. That's
Later via. Later via.
good. Like
Later
Latvia. Okay.
and Austria La Vista.
Ah, yes.
That's one.
Austria la vista, baby. And he's Austrian, right? Isn't he?
Right? Makes
Isn't
sense.
Schwarzenegger Austrian?
Yes, Austrian La Vista. But I like De Portugal. That was very good.
The
That's
Portugal is probably the best.
And Italy is good too.
so I
What
watched.
is France again?
France. He couldn't come up with one for France. There was
I
no-
saw Fruxit.
Brexit.
Oh. oh, I just got it. Brexit.
I thought that one was
I feel like there
pretty
needs to be a table flip associated with that one.
Amerigon.
Yeah.
Maybe that should be the flag, the white flag with table flip guy.
good. And we could have Can It.
Brexit.
I want to see the first nation that decides to leave the planet, and it's just like, look,
We're not
going
part of
to
Earth.
space. We're done. We're done.
Well,
Yeah.
actually, that's not the same thing. Your United Kingdom is not leaving Europe.
The
Darren.
atmosphere is so over. It's so done.
How many outboard Honda motors do you think it would take to just for the UK to just kind of like get themselves across the Atlantic and go chill with us, right? Think there's a spot for like they would like it near Florida, much better weather.
Yeah. I saw somebody on Twitter said, like, we can just move to the Bahamas, right? Isn't that how it works?
Like set sail, right?
Yeah.
The trade winds will take you.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it's the British Navy.
You know, right? Hitch the tow.
They'll just move the island.
Just move the island. Yes. Forget
Isn't
the
that what they
tectonic.
did in Lost? Is that a spoiler if I say that?
I don't think it is.
Spoiler.
Can you spoil Lost still? Is
You
that,
can't.
like, can
You
I spoil Mist?
Miss.
Oh. I think I may have spoiled Finding Dory for our intern.
Oh.
She gets found. Oh.
Yeah.
What? Oh man.
Yeah, I felt so bad right after I said it. It's like, yeah, it's pretty bad.
All right.
All right, I'm gonna head out.
All right. Yes, I'm gonna stop the stream anyway. So thank you, Len.
Bye everybody.
Thanks everybody for watching. Have a good weekend, everybody.
Bye bye.
Later.
Oh, are you on next?